Hi,
Hey Joe,
what's up?
we're finally here.
We're finally here after many months of trying to coordinate things. So, how you
I'm
been?
honored. I'm honored.
Yeah, well, it's good to have you. Um, I guess to kick things off, for people who don't know who you are, do you want to introduce yourself?
Totally. I don't expect anyone to know who I am. So,
Okay. Well, here's your chance.
so I'm Laura McDonald. I'm one of the enterprise account execs or salespeople over at ThoughtSpot, which probably a few of your listeners have heard of in
Yeah.
the AI analytics space. And I'm a recent migrant to the US,
Yeah.
2.5 years since moving over from London. So I'm still chasing the American dream.
Nice. Well, welcome. So, I can't remember how we first met, but
You know,
we've known each other for a while. So,
yeah, it was probably, I mean, working in the data analytics space, I followed a lot of people like you and Zach Wilson and like Sol and other people just so I can keep myself up to date with what's going on and what are people talking about.
yeah,
I think I probably started following you on LinkedIn and then I think we met at
AWS, something like that, and a few other
yeah,
places. Yeah.
or one of the Snowflake Summit, and I probably came up and fangirled, and that was it.
There we go. But we've been friends ever since, though, and it was good to hang out. So I think, and you started your own podcast too, which is kind of cool. So I think that's so we'll talk about that in a bit. But I think the things I mentioned in talking about with you are uh, enterprise sales, and this is something I'm pretty sure you're like, why would you ever want to talk about this? But I think it's one of these topics that, for at least for my audience, which tends to be more engineer, practitioner, maybe data leader based, right? There's not a lot of enterprise account execs or salespeople, as they call them. Listen to my podcast. Maybe you do, of course. But walk me through this. Like, what's kind of a day in the life of Laura?
Day in the life of Laura. What can I share? No, I'm
Work
joking.
related, of course.
So yeah, I love this topic. I mean, I think sales is it's still such a like the dark side world that is, in my opinion, one of the most misunderstood professions in the
Mm,
world and one of the greatest, especially at the enterprise level when you've got to be like super strategic with companies and accounts. It's not just transactional, telemarketing, cold call and sell on the phone and that kind of thing. So what we have to do is the piece that people hate on the other side, which is the prospecting. And there's a lot of different opinions on this, and I feel for people getting hit up by salespeople on LinkedIn or cold calling or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, the reason we sell software is because people have some kind of problem that they need to fix
hmm
and they need a technology to do that. And that should be a great um, mindset that salespeople should have is we are calling you Mr. Mrs. whoever CIO because we've done this research on your business. We've spoken to maybe some people in your team. Like we've heard about this problem that you have. We've solved this for all these other CIOs and like we'd just love to have a chat to see if this is even top of mind or we can solve it. So that's like how these sales cycles always start. And sure, you get very used to being rejected a lot of the time. So we've got a bit of a hard shell there. But once you get into a conversation, that's the first like 0.001 of the sales cycle. And then it goes into tons of discovery, conversations with all different people, especially analytics. You're selling a technical solution that has to solve a technical problem and fit in with the stack and the roadmap and security and governance and all of that. But it's also got to deliver some kind of measurable business outcome.
hmm
So we also want to talk to, who are the end users in marketing or finance or whatever it might be, and what are the technical issues that they're having with XYZ platform today impacting them from hitting their KPIs or accelerating on their objectives. And so that whole process is, you can imagine, like hundreds of conversations. and then you're trying to kind of herd all of this into a collective decision, but then you're against company politics. You know,
Mm,
people have bought tools before and they've built their team and their, you know, career on it, and you're against that, or you're against just different opinions, or, you know, maybe people want to hire more headcount rather than scale with software so they can build their own team. So there's all of these just internal things happening anyway on the customer side that you're then sort of caught in the middle of. So you're trying to be a sort of strategic advisor, but also working through all of this. And then, you know, up and down the chain, execs are interested in obviously cut costs, mitigate risk, increase revenue, all the way down to an end user has their own KPIs or their own, you know, perspective on what the company needs. And you're trying to like tie all of this together. And then you go into the technical solution and the POC, which is a whole other thing, which can take months of
right.
testing and multiple teams, and you're praying the tech works and and that whole thing. And then, you know, there's negotiation, contract, legal, and all of that. So it's a lot. And you're doing that with multiple companies all at the same time, and hundreds of people that you're working with, you know, every week. So it's great fun, but it's not easy. And the biggest misconception is still like sales are just trying to sell to whoever will buy, which I'm sure is the case of some companies or people, but strategically, like it's the total opposite.
Interesting.
Okay.
There's a lot there.
Sorry, I just went on like
No,
a
no,
whole.
no, no. It's great. Hi. Oh my
Oh,
god,
he
my
loves
dog.
it.
She wants to play fetch. No, go please. Just keep her entranced with this ball for the next bit. Hi. So maybe walk me through the beginning then. So you mentioned sales cycle. This indicates there's sort
Mm.
of a some sort of a start, a beginning to stuff. Does this is like a sales plan, or like what does the beginning of a sales cycle look like, or like kickoffs? I always hear my sales friends, they go to SKOs, sales kickoffs. Like
Yeah.
walk me through like what's the process like at the beginning of maybe uh, a sales team at a company? Like,
Yeah. So sales kickoff is just an internal thing. Like it's getting the team together, doing training, like talks with leadership, and having some fun with the team. So that's kind of it's just like a company offsite basically.
okay,
My favorite ones have been in Las Vegas because I love that place.
ah,
I it's amazing. It's like America all in one with flashing lights, and like the energy there is incredible. I mean, the whole like no windows and no clocks is kind of weird, but
it's a
Vegas,
feature, not a bug. So
yeah, exactly. So that I mean that usually happens every year. I think for most sales teams, I guess. But then like the sales cycle, which is what we say when we're like um, you know, engaging with a prospect company.
mhm.
But the interesting thing is that we have our sales cycles and methodologies and frameworks and things like this. But at the end of the day, we have to match the buyer's buying cycle.
So how does this work then? Are you kind of stepping back a bit? If I'm a salesperson, or say you're a salesperson, how do you go about getting accounts or territories or whatever? Like how does it
Oh, you
usually
want to go
work?
way back into sales?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I guess it depends on the company. Some companies, like the sales ops function, will do a lot of this territory mapping. So they do analysis on what we say ICP, ideal customer profile. So if I was selling a marketing solution, I'm probably selling to a CMO, a VP of marketing, a VP of demand gen, whatever it might be. And maybe we've identified that companies of a certain number of employees love our software because they can, you know, it's priced right and whatever it might be. So the ICP would become like tech companies of 1 to 5,000 employees that have at least 5 VPs of marketing. And
okay,
so that would become our like ideal customer that we want to go after. And then it will either be like sales ops will build out territories. So if I'm covering like San Francisco Bay Area, I'd get built a territory of like, these are all the companies that fit that profile. And in some companies, they'll also give you names of people, this CMO and VP of marketing. And if they have their contact details in a CRM because they've downloaded a white paper or signed up for a trial or whatever it might be, and the company has that information, then they might give you that. But if it's an earlier stage company, the reps, like the salespeople, sometimes are building the territory on their own. And we're doing our own research on companies in this area. Like I remember when I first started at ThoughtSpot, I was very much, or the first sales role at ThoughtSpot was looking for like cloud native tech companies of up to 1,000 people in the Nordics was the territory I was covering at first. Yeah. So my first customer was in Sweden. And then there was one in Norway and I think one in Finland. So that was the kind of market that I was targeting. So yeah, there's a ton of like pre-research that goes into it. And then we stalk the company, we stalk people on LinkedIn, we, see if they've done a blog with Snowflake on an analytics stack. So we know like, okay, they've got XYZ other tool. We know some of the pain points, so we can kind of go in with a crafted message. So cold outreach is usually never cold. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for saying that, but it's like there's a ton of research that goes into it, and there's a reason why we're reaching out.
Why do you think you'd get hate for that comment?
I see it on LinkedIn. You see so many like, dear salespeople, please never ever contact me on LinkedIn.
That's me.
I get you've done. I get 5,000 calls a day. I'm not going to answer you, which is totally fair because it must get pretty annoying. But at the same time, this is the way the world spins. Like people need guidance and partners to help evaluate technologies, and that's kind of what we're here for. And to be fair, the ironic one is when I shouldn't really say this, but I've seen ones where it's like salespeople hate cold calls, etc., and then there'll be like someone from sales commenting underneath saying something like, "Don't forget, your salespeople are doing the same thing to sell your software that pays your salary."
True.
Which is true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does make the world go round. Sales, that is. I mean, like it or not. Okay, so you got your customers, you got your list, maybe. What's next? Like, how do you prioritize which clients to go after first?
Good question. I mean, there's loads of ways to do this. One thing that I think everyone looks for is like, is the company doing well? Are they growing? Are they hiring? Do they look like they are investing in technology and software and etc., or whatever it is that you're selling? If the company is dying and their revenues have tanked and their stocks way down, they're probably focused on just keeping everything afloat rather than innovation and new technology. So that's probably one thing that we'd look at. A lot of the time it's also persona based as well. So if you're selling a sort of new solution that's a bit of a disruptor or something, you might want to look at, okay, if I'm selling to a CIO, have they been interviewed about the role of the CIO should be innovation focused rather than cost and ivory tower kind of thing, because that's the kind of person that might be more receptive.
Right.
Like little signals like that we'll look at. And then if you've done your job and you've researched like good use cases for your product, you should also stack rank your prospects by like who has the kinds of use cases that we do really well in and companies are successful using the software. So yeah, so when people get that little notification on LinkedIn, like some random salesperson looked at your profile, they're looking through all of this information.
Do you use like Sales Navigator? I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sales nav is good. Personally, I love like warm call is a new like term that's coined in
Mm,
our world, which is sort of like if let's take Zach Wilson. If I was trying to get to him and I'd spoken to you, like, hey, like this is what I sell. I usually sell to people like Zach. Do you think he'd be interested? And you were like, yeah, definitely. I'm sure he would. Blah blah blah. Actually, he was talking to me about this problem the other day. Then I would say, oh, amazing. Do you mind if I mention that we talked and mention your name? And you say, yeah, no problem. And then I'd message Zach like, hey, Joe said we should chat. He thinks you'd be really interested in this. And that's more of a like a warm kind of bridge. So I always
yeah.
that goes a long way, I
And
think.
all salespeople, by the way, listening to this, definitely call Zach Wilson and just
Yeah.
sell him everything
Yeah,
nonstop. I'll give you his number.
exactly. But I mean, have you seen this? Because I feel like on the data side, anyone in technology is having to sell at some point, probably internally, as what new ideas, ask for headcount, bringing in a new tool. Being on the buying side. I feel like it's a pretty transferable skill.
Well, I mean, I think sales is right, and I know this. I mean, I've run companies before, owned companies, and I think sales was one of those things I think initially where it felt a bit uncomfortable for sure, but then you also realize like you kind of have to do this, or else you're not going to have a business to be worried about. So you kind of get over
Yeah.
that pretty quick. I kind of look at it like the difficulty of like raising a child or something. It's like, yeah, it seems daunting, but like when your kid's there, you're probably going to not really think twice about it. You just do it and you figure it out. So I think sales is one of the things where I think you pick it up, and you're always selling whether you know it or not. Anytime
Mhm.
you're trying to convince anyone internally of a decision, you are selling. And what was interesting in my experience, especially the last company I was with Matt Housley, Ternary, we were a data engineering
Yeah.
firm. I mean, we were partners with a lot of companies, including ThoughtSpot, right? So we worked with a lot of the big players out there, and um, we're involved in many sales motions with data teams. So, uh, so I mean, having worked in data teams and having been sold software, and now, I think being on the other side and sort of helping bridge the gap between, solutions and data teams. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting perspective. I think the thing I would always remember was I'd always try and count the number of salespeople that were on the initial call.
Yeah.
So I'd always try and tell people like, you don't need to bring everybody. Just bring like
Mhm.
one or two, not 10.
Yeah.
Um,
All
so
good.
yeah, but internally it's hard. I think it's if you're on a data team, especially now, it's definitely I think discussions maybe back in the early part of this decade was let's get as many tools as possible because why
Mm.
not? That was it was almost like like kind of getting a bingo card or something. Now it's more how much can you do without, right, and how much can you minimize, and so that's more of a discussion right now. So it's definitely a discussion between data teams and their leaders and finance and whoever else is out there, right? So, but then data teams also have to sell what their output is. We're not talking about tools, just like um, deliverables. Like, what does this report mean? What does this analysis mean? What is this
Yeah.
machine learning model telling us, right? So, but yeah, I was just commenting to somebody earlier today about how, and actually, I was telling this to some students last night. I think sales is one of the things you really need to learn to be effective in your career, no matter what.
Mhm.
But strangely, it's not really taught in school, so you kind of have to learn it. So,
No, no, it really isn't. And yeah, you're so right. You can apply it to everything. Like I kind of, a lot of it is also psychology as well, and getting people to kind of open up about what they care about and like what they're worried about in their job or their career or what they really need to be promoted or
mhm.
how we can make them successful. And to your question about also like what do we look for and prioritize companies, it's also especially in tech, as you'll know, like you can't just have endless AI tech POCs or shadow software or shadow IT or science projects. So our job is also, we want to research like company initiatives. What does the CEO
Right.
talk about? And we want to help like whoever the VP of analytics, like your CEO has this objective to double your ARR revenue or whatever. We've helped all these other companies do this by better analytics.
Hmm.
And this is why we should talk. And then you, VP of analytics, will be seen in a great light as helping your CEO achieve this. So that's kind of our job as well, is like helping tie business objectives to the technology
Mm.
based on what we see with other customers, which is hopefully a value add for people trying to work out like, what do I do with all of this stuff and all these tools that I could be looking at? And I personally, I feel sorry for like technology buyers and leaders, because there must just be so much that they can look at and evaluate. Like they could spend their life asking their team to do POCs on things. So how do
I mean,
they
it
prioritize,
kind of feels like the windowless casino in Vegas, right? Where
Yeah, it
it's
is.
dizzying and
Yeah.
no shortage of options, no shortage of people willing to give you drinks, no shortage of,
Yeah. Like
um,
endless slot machine on like new
yeah,
tools.
right. And I do think there's some similarities to that, just nonstop barrage of stuff.
Mm,
And I noticed the salespeople that were effective do what you did, which is tie it back to the business outcome. And because you see the salespeople that I always get annoyed with were the ones who would just talk kind of motto a motto on features. Like, yeah,
totally.
we do that too. Well, we got that covered. Competitor does this. Yeah, we got that too. So and I was like, yeah, but
But you,
it's what's that?
but you don't.
Right. It's arguably the other thing for sure.
Totally.
So
Totally.
it's
Yeah. There's a phrase in the sales world that we get taught about, which is the seller deficit disorder,
what's
which
that?
basically means it describes a salesperson that doesn't know the prospect's business and doesn't listen.
Hmm.
Just yeah, they regurgitate feature function, and there's like they have no hypothesis of how they can help the business. They haven't understood the buying profile, and it's just a kind of a feature list that
Yeah,
doesn't.
because it's kind of like if I were to sell BI tools and I took that approach, I'd be like, well, you can see, right? You have two eyes. It's great. Well, you know how to read a chart, right? Well, we have those too.
Yeah.
So you can just buy that. You have a computer. It works on that. Right.
Yeah.
It's super idiotic. But that's about as bad as it gets sometimes. It actually gets worse. But I think you get the idea. So walk me through this then. Like, if you were trying to sell to a guy like me,
Yeah.
how would you do it? And for the audience, I'm notorious for like never answering calls. I barely answer emails. I'm horrible with messages. But I do have needs and I do buy software. So,
So I would, if I was trying to sell to you, Joe, obviously I follow you on LinkedIn and you announce conferences that you're going to be at pretty openly. So I'd find one that you're going to. As much as I love going back to Europe, I probably wouldn't follow you over there. That would be a little
come
weird.
on, Laura, you would.
Never say never. But I'd find one that you're going to locally, and then I would turn up with my nerd.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's cute. Yay.
I can't really see it. I'd wear this. I'd come and I'd sit in the front row of your talk. I'd make sure I ask a question that's intelligent, and and then you'd answer it, etc. And then I would try and catch you at the end of your talk, just to introduce myself and say,
Yep.
thank you, I learned so much, blah 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 blah. So that they, we'd have a warm connection, and then I would do some research, probably use Chat GPT to figure out like, okay, if I'm an author running multiple businesses and a podcast, like what kind of technologies am I using? Or something like that. Like I try and find out, what are you using? What do you need in your role? Obviously, maybe Riverside, etc. So I'd research that, and then I'd probably craft a message. And you're very active on LinkedIn, so I'd either consider, okay, he probably gets so many LinkedIn messages, he's not going to see this. So I'd maybe try and get your phone number and just give you a call. And then it would be pretty warm. I'd say, hey, we met at your talk. Like we chatted at the end, and then you'd be, oh yeah, you had the sticker on you. Like, how are you, etc., etc. And then I'd say like, hey, I work with some other podcasters and like multimedia authors, etc., helping them with XYZ problem. Just wondering if this is something that's top of mind for you.
Yeah.
And then hopefully you say yes. And I'd say something like, amazing. What exactly is the thing that you're trying to solve for? You'd give me some detail. And then I'd recognize that, I've just called you out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
If you're open to it, why don't we set up 20 minutes next week and we can have a proper chat? And then
I like the 20 minutes number too. It's easy.
Yeah. 20 minutes.
People don't get any ideas in this call or this podcast.
I'm like to say 15,
15, that's even better.
Yeah. But that's the idea, is you don't want it to be super salesy. It should just be like, hey, this is my hypothesis based on research. If I'm totally off and you're good, cool. Yeah. Like we'll all move on with our lives. If you are having this problem, then I think I can help. And, let me talk you through it and you can decide whether you want to look into this further or not.
Sure. And I think the important thing there too, and I like your approach, by the way, it would work. I'll get into another thing in a second, but I think it's important that you mentioned if it's not a fit today, we move on. But the thing I've also realized is maybe it's not a fit at this exact moment, but
totally,
things happen. Like I've been in deals where it probably took 2 or 3 years to get that thing going.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, right.
It can't take that long.
It can.
It can take.
But you got to keep nurturing those relationships, I would say, and just you don't burn any bridges. At least for a good reason. Yeah, but it's the timing of deals could it just. The company might just be undergoing exactly what you said. Like at that point in time, when you mentioned the companies that are not doing well, maybe they're not doing well today. Maybe they have maybe they resurface, or more importantly, I always kind of looked at this like, like springtime in a lot of ways when things, pollinate and stuff. Like people move to other jobs.
Yes. 100%.
And what you're pitching them at their current job may not be a fit for a ton of reasons. Like they don't have no money. There's no interest. There's a lot of politics. They might bring you into the next one. I've had that happen countless times. So
totally, yeah. And that's when you've built like a really trusted relationship as well. Like I've got customers who bought ThoughtSpot like 3 times. They just rinse and repeat every company, which is amazing to see. But that first sales cycle was like over a year. So yeah, you have to be prepared, I think, for the long game. And yeah, if you've done your research right and you firmly believe you can help the company, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, like, yes, we have a quota, hanging over our heads and all of that. But if we're not talking to the right company, we're never going to sell the product. So there's no benefit in it for me either to waste anybody's time.
Oh yeah, I think the salespeople I know, especially the good ones, are some of the most efficient people I know in terms of using their time wisely to talk to the right clients. A friend of mine lives down the street. Actually, he was a salesperson at another data company, data vendor, and he made a lot of money. But the guy, I know he's like ruthless in terms of the way he uses his time with prospects. It's like not a good fit. Cool, talk. We'll call you back in a bit. Not a big deal. Yeah. But he was very persistent on the deals that would get him to the quota. Speaking of quota, so walk me through how this works. Explain what is a quota and how do you go about hitting it?
I wish I knew.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding. So a quota is it all trickles down from, if you're privately owned, then it's probably, it's investor, board, it trickles down, executives, they set the quota. And every salesperson has a quarterly revenue number that they have to hit. Depends on the company. Some companies might just have yearly or biannually or whatever it might be. But I think it's every quarter, every rep will have a number to hit. So that's up to obviously the rep and the business on how you hit that number, whether it's one big deal or multiple little deals or a mixture. That's obviously very dependent on your patch and your customers and your pipeline. But that's the idea, is you have to hit your number. And if everyone hits, then the company over succeeds and can present, great results to the board or the street. If they don't, then obviously the company misses. So you're very conscious that your number is your boss's number, which is your VP's number, which is the SVP's, which is the CRO's, which goes all the way up. So that's kind of how it works, quota wise. And we have to obviously, you have a vested interest, because this is our job. Our job is to sell software to people that need it, not anyone, but just people that need it. And the win for us is we hit our quota and we do well, and obviously there's a financial aspect to that as well. But we also have to be very conscious. Sometimes people can't buy in the timeline that we want, because we have to follow the buying cycle. And a security review in a big bank can take 4 months to complete, and sometimes you just can't rush that stuff. So especially in enterprise, you've got to be prepared for that, which is tough. But it's also, you have to juggle multiple evaluations at the same time, so that if one slips, there's hopefully others that, are ready to go at the time that you would like them to.
So how do you time that out then? Say that you have enterprise prospects, some with longer sales cycles than others, but you have to hit this quarterly number. Like, how are you positioning all these different timelines and requirements?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated, because our quarters are not the customer's problem. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's our problem, and that's when we want it to be done by. So, obviously sales cycles don't go on forever. So there will be deals that fall within quarter, and there's negotiation pieces there as well. Like, if a customer is ready to buy, then it's a very natural, amazing. If we can work quickly and get this done in the next 4 weeks, then it's easier to get discounts approved or things like that, because, it's important for us end of quarter. So there's a benefit on both sides if the customer is ready to buy and you're going through that process. The challenge, I guess, is if you're starting out in sales with a totally greenfield patch, like you have no existing customers, it's all cold outreach. And especially in enterprise, then you're probably going to have a few quarters of zeros, because it just takes that long. So then you've got to try and diversify your business. Maybe you're working, half of your territory are big customers that are going to take years. And then maybe you're targeting some smaller companies, which can move faster, because, a 5,000 person company usually can move faster than a 50,000 person company. So there's that way. And then it just comes down to building trust with buyers. Like, if you've built a trusted relationship and you really get into a personal level, you can then, ask for a favor. Like, timings are unnatural here, but this means a lot to me for XYZ reason personally. But you always have to give people an out, I think. Like, if we can't do it, no worries. I'll get you a great discount next quarter. We're still going to be here. I'm still going to get you a good, a good deal. So that's when it gets down to how much of a trusted personal relationship have you built with your people you're working with.
That makes a lot of sense. How does this work then? I know that the classic thing is to wait to the end of the quarter and then come back to the salesperson with some very unreasonable request. Does this happen to you?
Oh yes, procurement's favorite game. Yeah, it does, and it's. I remember someone gave me some great coaching. Actually, one of the people I had on my podcast said the best salespeople that they've worked with are the ones who say, like, don't worry at all about the buying procurement process. Like, I'll get you what you need. I'll work my internal people. Just, let me take this off your plate, kind of thing. And you make it like your problem to take on. Obviously, there's always negotiation. Like, you come in here, procurement makes some ask here, you meet them halfway. Then finance asks for something else, different
Hmm.
payment terms, and then you say like yes, but we have to sign on this date, and that's kind of the game. I wish it could just be a one conversation where it's like, what's important for you in procurement? Like, tell me everything that's important for you, and then we can work out something that's a win-win. But there is always a little dance, I guess, at the end.
Interesting. Do you find yourself talking to your main contact there, or do you talk to finance as well, or other uh, people, or
It really depends. Like some companies I've worked with, they are extremely strict on the vendor works only with this one person in procurement,
mm,
and you are not allowed to have any outside conversations. Other companies, it's a little more of a partnership. It will be you, your buyer, procurement all in a room, kind of like constructing the deal together for what makes sense on both sides. So it totally depends. And then there'll
interesting?
also be usually like different levels of procurement. If you're selling a 50K deal, you'll be with someone lower down in the procurement stack. If you're selling a 7-figure deal, you're going to be like with the head of procurement, um,
Right.
who's probably going to be a lot tougher.
And then what about RFPs? Do you have to fill those out, or do you have somebody to do this for you?
RFPs. That's also a big debate in the sales world.
Hmm.
Um,
Why?
because there's a phrase which is there's two winners in every deal, the person who wins the deal and the person who exited the quickest. And it all comes down to like if you get sent an RFP or hey, we're evaluating analytics tools, and if you don't see your unique differentiators. So for us, it's like if we get sent an RFP and there's nothing in there about search based analytics, conversational
Hmm.
analytics, I'd be like, I recommend you go and look at Tableau or Sigma,
Yeah.
or they seem like a much better fit for what you need. So if you get an RFP that you haven't helped shape or understood what's influenced it and you can't win it, then like run a mile. Back out. Yeah. If if you get sent an RFP that you think you're the right fit for, then it's kind of like a proceed with caution because
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of the times RFPs have been put together by someone who maybe hasn't engaged with the business on what they need. And it's just very, very technical, like checklist. And they're asking for things which like they do it a certain way in business objects, which is so like antiquated that no one else does that because it's like such an old school way of doing things. So it's like, we're not going to meet all of these, but we also don't think you really need them in today's
Right.
world.
I totally agree. I think we did a couple, and I just said we're not doing RFPs. This is a complete. It's just
Yeah.
it's too much friction. I would say that maybe with ChatGPT, I might reconsider that now. But even then,
Mm,
now everyone's doing probably just responses with ChatGPT, so it's not even
yeah.
that
Yeah.
special. They all look the same. They all sound the same. Um, yeah. What about renewals? So this is another one too. So you made the sale, and then it's renewal time. What does Laura do?
So the different companies have different structures. Like some companies, sales team sell, and then the customer gets passed to an account manager, different person, and then they
Mm,
don't have anything to do with the salesperson because that's just the way the business is modeled. Other companies, your account exec, the salesperson, stays with you the whole time, and so you never, in those scenarios, which is like me, you don't leave your customer. So you're there the whole way through the implementation, the onboarding of users, scoping more use cases, rolling out to more people, on sites, exec sessions, roadmaps, all of this stuff. Like you're still running that relationship. So you're way ahead of anything before the renewal. Like if usage isn't where it needs to be, you're kind of partly responsible for that, and you're working with the
Right.
customer on, how do we grow this and get more adoption or whatever it might be. Um, so you'll know way in advance whether a customer is intending to renew, and hopefully you've done enough good discovery in the like pre-sales that the customer shouldn't churn because you've sold them something that they need and that technically works and is going to give a ton of value.
Right.
So yeah, but if it's a good customer and you've got a good relationship with them, then most renewals should hopefully be an upsell as well.
Mm.
Is the idea.
So what does that look like?
It depends. I mean, some companies who have teams that execute like really fast on implementing new software, and they've got a really great way of engaging the business, adoption is high. Some companies want to go straight to, okay, we want to go wall to wall. We've bought your product for 2 use cases. It's working really well. Like we've proven it out in production. We now don't want to mess around with SaaS consumption pricing anymore. Like we just want to go wall to wall. Others, it will be like gradual. You'll renew for 3 more use cases and then
Mm.
4 more use cases, and then eventually build up to that state. Others, it's not like that. And sometimes customers don't renew. And that's
Mm-hmm.
like, you're always going to have that as well. Either the team has changed, like your original buying team has left, or the company has like cut half of their analytics team who
It
wasn't
happens.
owning, your product, which unfortunately happens. So sometimes things like that happen, or a new leader comes in and they have a totally different vision and they want to go a different direction. But the main rule is if your product is serving a purpose and enough people are using it, and there's you can measure the value back in efficiency, business impact, whatever it might be, then you should be good. But yeah, as a seller, it's that hangs over you as well. Like, are my customers going to be successful? And
Mm.
do our execs have a good relationship? Are we co-innovating together, etc., etc., etc.? So yeah, the work doesn't stop once someone signs a contract. If anything, it gets more.
Right. I can imagine you're probably, checking in, taking people to lunch maybe or something like that, or any
Yeah,
number of other activities. So
yeah, got to get face to face.
yeah.
Yeah, got to get face to face. I don't love the virtual world.
Mm.
Virtual right now is great.
Well,
But it's hard, like building relationships with people and customers over Zoom.
mm. Yeah,
I
I
don't
can
know.
imagine.
From when you were doing the consultancy business, if you went on site or you were mostly virtual with you and Matt.
Um, it was in person. I mean, so we started 2017, 2018, and
Mm,
I partnered, I would say, off the bat with a couple of the big cloud providers, and had a very good relationship, right? So we knew a lot of accounts. I mean, and I got this. So I ran a couple very key meetups in the community, right? And it turned out that a lot of these people at the meetups, including the meetup hosts, ended up becoming our customers. And but in some cases, they became sort of joint go-to-market customers. These
yeah,
some of these partners and so forth, and but I always had good relationships with people, and I always made it a point too. Like in no circumstance, and I told these my partners, like, I'm not going to compromise my community just to get a sale. Like that's not what I do. It's not what this is about. But I do know the issues, and if we can find a mutual way that where our customers want to work with us and with the partners, that's great. But I wasn't going to try and use my position for financial gain, and I think that ended up working out well for everybody. But I was always very cognizant of that. So in person versus that was probably did a lot of in person stuff, in person events, in
yeah.
person meetings up to COVID, and then obviously everything went online. I was in Utah, so like I think mask mandates lasted for like a week and a half.
Really?
Yeah, we
I'm
were
not
just like
surprised.
whatever. Yeah, it was pretty short. And then back to office, like people were going back to office, I think within like about a month or something. So like people were meeting up. I think cautiously, of course, and probably
Yeah.
outdoors, but it wasn't what you saw in like California or San Francisco, where
Mm.
you're you could probably get beaten if you walk outside your apartment. So that was a big difference. So we were doing in person, I would say, pretty quickly back after COVID started.
Hmm.
Because what happened was obviously the companies that our clients, like, a lot of them laid off their data teams
Yeah.
right, pretty much right after the national emergency happened.
Mm.
But then, a few of these were like online retailers, and they were busier than ever because they sold things that people wanted. And
Yeah.
so they hired everybody back. They signed big deals.
Mm.
I think everyone made got what they wanted out of it. But um, yeah, we were working with the data teams, helping implement stuff, and working with the partners, right? And so that's where I started getting more involved in the sales go to motion. I mean, I remember like my Mondays and Tuesdays were nothing but back to back to back partner and sales calls,
Yeah.
like pretty much 12 hours a day.
Hmm.
Yeah, at
Yeah.
least probably more days than that. My job was pretty much at full time sales and partner management at one point. So
Yeah. It's a pretty 24/7
yeah.
job, I find. Like it's kind of impossible to switch off,
Hmm.
which kind of fits my personality. So I'm good with that. But
What do you mean?
um I'm quite I don't know, an energetic person.
Hmm.
So being in like, yeah, this kind of role where it's always on, like there's just always so much happening with your customers and your prospects. And then there's, the pressure of the quota and pressure of making your customers happy. Like you can't just sit back and be like, oh, maybe someone will buy from me.
Right. Which is
um,
funny because that's the approach I took actually with inbound sales for my company. Like it was one of these things where like I was telling somebody today, is like my sales approach is almost to get you to not want to work with us.
yeah,
Because if you
yeah,
actually wanted to work with us, then
that's
it's like,
psychology.
yeah, I'd
Yeah,
be like, I don't know if this can be a fit. It's just,
that's the way. You
what's that?
give people the out, and then it
Oh
like
yeah.
just relaxes the situation.
Well, they
Like,
start processing like, gosh, I actually do want to work with this person more than ever now. You start
yeah,
justifying reasons.
yeah, totally. Like if they know that there's no pressure on them, then it's just way more like human, honest conversation of, do you really want to do this or you're
Yeah,
not? If you don't, like, no worries, and I'll be the first to tell you whether you're a good fit.
yeah. I don't think we ever did any outbound. I'm trying to think back. I don't. I mean, all of our deals came through the relationships we'd built. They were
Yeah,
just needing our help. I don't think we've ever had to do a cold call.
I think
Um,
everyone should have to do cold calls.
what's that?
I think everyone should have to do cold calls.
Well, I did. I used to have a job as a
Yeah,
telemarketer
so yeah,
back in the day.
you've done it, so you're
Yeah,
good. I always think,
I know how to do it. And Matt, he used to be a Mormon missionary, so like he was
yeah,
going door to door selling.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, but
everything is sales. Yeah,
yeah.
the
Well, in
best way.
Utah is interesting because because of the LDS, the Latter Day Saints here. I would reckon we have probably among the best sales people
That's
in the
true.
world, but that's why a lot of people have their sales teams here is because you got
Uh,
people who are multilingual who have no
yeah,
hesitation going to your door and asking you for whatever.
yeah,
And they don't drink, they don't do drugs. It's like it's
yeah,
perfect. Yeah,
perfect
straight
person.
arrows. Yeah, and they can sell like crazy. Not a
Yeah,
problem.
maybe I should
Yeah.
move to Utah next.
Uh, you'd like it. I mean, if you like the outdoors, I think it's a really good place. It's not London or San Francisco, but it's I don't know.
True, true. San Francisco is not London. That's
San
very
Francisco's not London.
no. San Francisco is not London. It's actually crazy how different like the US is to the UK, even though we speak the same language and people kind of look the same. Um, it's very
Yeah, the
different.
UK's got like a lot of different pockets though, but I mean you got to keep in mind it's an island about the size of the state of Utah. Actually, it's like
Yeah,
literally the same land
Grand
size.
Canyon. I'm pretty sure the Grand Canyon end to end is longer than the
I think
UK.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing that we had such a powerful empire.
Well,
powerful might not be the right word, but you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah, it was
for a
influential.
country like so tiny to have
Hmm.
colonized and explored so much of the world is like, wow, that's
Yeah,
somebody there had a vision.
yeah, it's it's something. But I still like getting back to London though. I think it's got a good data and tech scene there. You know,
It
it's
does.
it's different. It feels like it's definitely a bit behind the U.S. But I think most, or at least, I mean, there's parts of the U.S. that are behind the U.S. I would say too, depending where you
True.
go. So the U.S. is a very very large place. I actually got chastised for this when I was in Munich. I was giving a talk, and I think I asked a question about the EU, and one of my friends, she's like, "Well, but you can't just, the EU is like a very big place. You can't just say EU. You know, Germany's different
That
than
is very true.
Croatia. So yeah.
Yeah, that is
Um,
very true. That's kind
what
of how I feel in the US. Like each state is almost like going to another country
Oh, it
sometimes.
is. It totally is. You go to Nevada, you go to Utah or Alabama. They're all different
Yeah.
countries. What is it? What's it like selling in the UK versus in the US? I've always been curious about this.
I find that I mean, I only have experience selling in, well, mainly California, a few other places as well. People here, I think, are more likely to spend money to make money, whereas I
Mm,
think more of a default in the UK is a bit more risk averse. Let's take less risks. Let's look to save money before innovation. I mean, maybe this is, I'm sure that's changing. But that was one of the main things. On the flip side, though, I think especially here in, obviously, as you know, in Bay Area, like everyone has huge engineering teams. There's maybe more of a
yeah.
build everything ourselves mindset, or we know everything because we're all from Berkeley and etc. etc.
Hmm.
Whereas sometimes in the UK, you find people are more like they want more help because they don't have teams of 500K a year software engineers,
Right.
and they're like looking for more guidance and help. So yeah, I guess that's two differences. But it all comes down to the company and the people in the companies.
Right.
Like, yeah, I've got great customers in the UK and great customers here, and it's always people that like aren't afraid of innovation and you know doing great things for their company and being the ones attached to it rather than waiting for someone else to bite the bullet.
Right. That makes sense.
And there's less sarcasm here, which I miss a lot.
The British are they're different. You can
Yeah.
always feel like you talk to a Brit and they pretty much they've insulted you in the politest way possible. And it kind of a joke. It's like you've been cut in two by a sword and you didn't even know it. Um, so
Yeah, there's this like meme that I'll send you, which is like UK English and American English, and it's like a Brit will say like, "Oh, that's interesting," and it is like in American that means, "Oh, they think I'm interesting," and the British translation is like, "That's the worst idea I've ever heard." So
I think I relate more to Brits
that's
and
interesting.
yeah, I
And
relate more to that style of just of talk than I think American. So 'cause I'll say exactly that, but mean it exactly how you said it in the British way. So it's funny. Yeah, shoot that over. Kind of closing out, like, so you got a podcast.
yes.
What's that about?
So it's about, again, one of my favorite topics, the selling and the buying relationship. And I interview senior technology buyers to get their
Mm,
perspective on what makes a great sales rep, like what makes a great buying cycle. Because a lot of our thought leaders and books and podcasts in the sales world are brilliant, but they're usually run by salespeople.
right.
Whereas I want to know like what matters to buyers when they think about these kinds of things.
Mm,
So yeah, I've done 4 episodes.
that's cool.
I've got the next two in the works, which is
Nice.
really exciting. And yeah, it's called The Buyer's World. And the tagline is it's the buyer's world and we're just selling in it.
True.
And which is true. And yeah, it's on Spotify. And I've had great feedback from salespeople. And also interestingly, tech founders have messaged me saying like, this is really interesting because I know the tech, but I'm now a founder and I need to actually
Hmm.
sell my product, and I don't know how to do that. I just know how to code. So that was a new audience segment that I didn't anticipate.
That's actually a pretty big one. I think there's a lot of founders who
Yeah.
need help in this. Like I would spend a lot of my time reading sales books actually,
Mhm.
and just dissecting stuff, right? So Challenger Sale,
Great one.
Gittimer, negotiation books, the whole nine yards. Yeah, I'm actually, uh, I hate to say well read in this stuff, but I actually enjoy reading about this stuff.
It's
So
important. Yeah, there's some great ones. Never split the difference.
yeah,
It's
it's a great one. I've read it 3 times. I actually met Chris Voss at LAX one
wow,
time. That
did
was
you?
pretty hilarious. Yeah.
That's
Um,
that's a claim. That's
yeah,
cool.
he's a good, he's a pretty good dude. Yeah, one of my favorite books of all time is Never Split the Difference. It's a good one.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
good. Like great concept, really helpful.
So you use that in your sales then?
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
tactics you do, like the mirroring, the
Hmm.
labeling, it does actually have an effect and just makes for better conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
one of my
I
heroes.
guess you guys are mirroring me now. I'm like, so,
Stop mirroring you. You can get stuck in a mirror.
yeah, it's funny. I see this happen with people too. They people who know what they're doing. You can tell the exchange. It gets really awkward looking. So they
Yeah, like sales
cross
trying
their
to sell
arms.
sales is like
Yeah,
you know what you're trying to do here.
it's so funny. Well, Laura, thanks for the fun chat. I can't wait to catch up with you in person sometime soon. So
Totally. Yeah. Honored again. Thank you for having me. I listen to this podcast all the time and learn a
yeah.
ton from it. So yeah, hopefully this was a interesting new angle for your listeners.
Oh yeah, and for the listeners to go check out Laura's podcast, I think you'll learn a lot. I've listened to your episodes, and it's like, yeah, learn a lot every time. I think it's good to get outside of your comfort zone and get different perspectives on
Definitely.
stuff. So awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks
Thank you.
again.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.